Hey, it's Nancy from Nancy Chu Homes, and I'm going to start off today by talking a little bit about what a housing bubble is. So I'm going to ask you to go ahead and pause the video, go down to the comments, and give me your one-line definition of what a housing bubble is. All right? Okay, now that you've done that, we're going to keep going. All right? So a housing bubble, my definition is a fast and somewhat meteoric rise in housing prices that's basically due to an increase in demand or speculation in the real estate market. And usually this is because there is really a limited supply of housing, which is pretty slow to replenish itself. All right. You guys have to remember, and I know we've talked about this, that in the last decade, we've seen such a slowdown of new home construction that we really haven't been replenishing our housing supply, even as our population grows. So a bubble also implies that the bubble will eventually pop, right? Like we think about soap bubbles, gum bubbles, there's an expectation of imminent collapse. So starting off with that definition, let's talk about some of the three things that people have claimed are going to happen, how the housing bubble is going to happen. So we're going to start off with these three things. And at the end, don't forget, stay on, because I'm going to give you a little key into what the new housing bubble claims are. All right. Oh, by the way, listen, if you find any value in our videos, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, because if you do so, then it allows us to work with the algorithm and it helps us to reach more people with our information, because I think everyone should have great access to housing data. Okay. So the first housing bubble claim that we saw in the last couple of years are inflation is going up, and so therefore the house prices are going to be a challenge as they lose their jobs through inflation, right? As the Fed continues to increase the rate, the expectation was that we were going to have more job losses, and therefore people were going to lose their homes, and there was going to be a wave of foreclosure, and that was going to be the end of that was going to pop the bubble. Well, okay, guess what? Here we are. So unemployment is still at 3.7%. We haven't seen the wave of job losses because we have a talent issue in this country. More jobs than we have people to fill them. So that hasn't happened. The wave of foreclosures. Although I will tell you, as of this week, we looked at, I believe across the entire country, we were at about 180,000 people who were in the foreclosure process with their homes. That is a drop in the bucket for how many people own homes in this country, the millions and millions that do. And one of the things that we've discovered is that everybody's got enough equity in their homes now that before they'll lose their home, there's a really strong likelihood that they'll sell that home first, pull the equity out of it, and go do something else, right? So this wave of foreclosures isn't really happening, number one. Oh, and number two, I think we've seen a particular trend of banks who have foreclosures. At this point, we're not looking at them turning around and selling them to the general public. It looks like they've gone a different direction, which is they're looking for institutional buyers to really take entire blocks of foreclosed homes off their hands. Institutional buyers are essentially investors, large-scale investors, and possibly even medium-scale investors. So, it's very frustrating for us in the industry and for, just human beings that we're trying to help. Access to homes, like foreclosures would have been a great, source of inventory pipeline. Unfortunately, banks aren't saying that they're going to give them to the people. They're going to give them to the investors. Yay, banks. Thanks for helping us out. All right. So let's talk about the second reason why we were going to have this burst bubble. Reason number two, interest rates are going to rise and therefore will force a drop in demand. Oh, actually, that's actually partially true. The interest rates have risen in the last 12 months rather significantly, and they have forced a ton of people out of the market. We're probably down about 50% in demand across the country. What they didn't account for is that the folks who are still here are still desperately in need of a home, and we have not enough inventory to work with. All right. So, you're in trouble when a Fed chair says, I don't know, we didn't anticipate this. We didn't think that raising the interest rates was going to take people out of selling their homes. Yeah, They didn't think about that. So not only have they decreased demand, they've also decreased the inventory to such a degree that what little inventory is out there, the demand that exists is fighting for it. And don't forget, we have one of the biggest groups, the millennials, and now even the ones who are younger, the Gen Zs. Listen, they're here and they want someplace to live. One of the two of the biggest cohorts ever to exist, they're here and they're fighting over 50% of the inventory that we used to have. All right. So there you go. That's going to pop the bubble. Nope. Bubble's still there. All right. Or at least the high prices are still there. All right. Number 3. Here's the third reason we heard that bubble was going to pop. And that is investors are fleeing the market in some places. And so therefore house prices will plummet. Okay. I don't think we've seen the investors. Do you remember like the articles that was like Airbnbs are going to fly onto the market? So far, nothing. The investors seem to be pretty comfortable. The ones that have had these properties for a while, they have them at such cheap rates that there's no reason for them to get rid of them. And, if you have investment properties, you have a couple of ways to handle it. You may have started out with a property as an Airbnb, but you may choose to change it to a midterm rental or even a long-term rental. And then that changes the numbers for you, right? Some of these things may, in other words, your investments may still be working for you because you have a couple of ways of using them. So there you go. Investors are going to nope, investors have not popped this bubble. So here we are. These are the 3 most recent bubble bursting claims. All right. Now, I am going to share with you one thing. Now, this is the secret thing that has been on the docket. You're starting to hear this conversation now. You guys ready? This one you probably haven't heard yet. This one is brand new. And I have to tell you, I'm just now starting to hear it within the media, and it definitely plays a part in, the reason why I notice it is because it definitely plays a part in my business. And it is number 4, Sparity. Okay? Sparity. The definition, in this particular case, it is really the lack of density in our market comparables. All right, just give me a second. I'm going to rewind and explain something to you. So I went on a listing appointment on Sunday. Adorable house, really sweet sellers. And I had to explain to them that in their direct market area, their neighborhood, I was having a hard time finding comparables, right? So as we reduce the number of homes, reduce the inventory for sale, a lot of different properties are in little pockets where there just really isn't a lot of data. So not a lot of market comparables. Now, when you don't have a lot of comps, it can affect certain things. It can affect the way that you price the property. It can affect the way that a buyer might be looking at your property when they go to make an offer on it. And honestly, a meager number of comps could really also cause things like, appraisal issues because the appraiser doesn't have enough information to work with in order to help properly price a property within a purchase. Okay. So these are some of the things that could be an issue. So I had to talk to these clients about what we thought the appraisable limit of that house was and how that would affect their particular sale experience, right? So let's break down this new thing, the idea of Sparity, right? If the rates come down, and I have heard this now in the media, which is so funny because I've been thinking about it at the same time. If the rates come down, then inventory is going to increase, and then prices are going to come down thusly because of that increased inventory. And I'm going to tell you right now that my immediate brain went to, and where do they think that inventory is coming from? Right? Think about this. This is their expectation. If the rates come down a little, which they are anticipated to do so in the next 2 years, right? Then the number of homes for sale will rise. And so therefore, you'll see more inventory and therefore less pressure on demand, and home sale prices will fall. And that is their definition of the 4th bubble burst. Well, okay, so first of all, I don't know that it's bursting a bubble. It could allow prices to finally level off, which I think would be fantastic because meteoric, price increases don't really do anything for us, and it's not good for affordability, and it's not good for the American people, period, right? But I had a little bit of a moment because I wondered where they thought that inventory was coming from. The current inventory that we see on the market right now is really about people who have no choice. They have to sell their homes, i.e. divorce, i.e. estates, death, right? How about the job, right? So in other words, if you are being relocated for work, you don't have much of a choice. You kind of got to sell your home. So anybody I know who is looking at currently selling their homes, most of them are doing it because they have to, not necessarily because they're looking to upsize, downsize, right? I would tell you folks who are looking to downsize may have a little more of an advantage because they could be selling their bigger homes, taking the equity from it, and then applying more cash to whatever they're downsizing into. So you're looking at the interest rates not really being much of an effect on them because they're using more cash, right? So I kept wondering, like, so where does that inventory come from? And I thought, it's not like more people are suddenly going to fall into those three categories. So then you're talking about the equity buyer seller finally looking to put their home on the market. Now, an equity buyer seller is a person who sells their home, takes the equity out of it to buy something else. So if we see an increase in inventory, we're also technically seeing an increase in the buyer pool, right? So, so I thought about it and I thought, so whatever inventory comes in, it's really a net zero gain of inventory because we're talking about, yeah, I got to sell my house, but I'm going to take another house out of the inventory stash anyway, because I'm going to be selling in order to buy. So I am questioning a little bit about whether or not this would create further bubble, I guess, because whether or not this would whether or not it would break this bubble, because the truth is, I think that's a net zero gain of inventory because a reduction in rates means that I can afford to find something else again. So I don't know. I'm just putting that out there for you guys to think about. It's a really interesting question. All right, guys, that's my video for the week. Do not forget, if you have any inclination at all because you enjoy our videos, please comment, like, and subscribe. And I'll keep it coming as long as you keep listening. I'll talk to you guys next week.